So, in this section, much is covered in the crash course, and I really wanted to go into focusing on aspects of religion since that's what I've been using as kind of a theme for this section for 106. But just to say, when I talked about again the issues of the countryside, the wealth disparity and all these things have to do with the result of the cost of war and expansion, and this goes for all states when these kind of things are taking place. What we're seeing is eventually the fall of the republic and a sharing of power, and no one really wants to share. Julius Caesar comes to power and leaves quite a legacy, to say the least, on Rome, despite the fact that he only rules for a year. And then you have the rise of Octavian after his death, murder, should I say, and he becomes Caesar Augustus, the first emperor. And we end up going from republic to empire. And that's addressed in the video here. I have the link for you to watch. The Roman Empire or Republic, or what was it? Okay, so obviously the territory that expanded was quite large, and by 138 CE, it's massive. And in my Western Civ class, it's when we think about Western civilization, Europe obviously really becomes heavily influenced later by this. But in any case, I want to talk about Greco-Roman culture, and then as we slide into religion. In 146 BC, Roman completed conquest of Greece by destroying Corinth. Okay, but that destruction, the conquest of Greece, is interesting because, as Horace said, captive Greece has made their conquerors captive. Excuse me. This was often a complaint by Roman elites that Greek culture was dominating too much of Roman culture. I mean, they're the ones that got conquered, so why are they now taking over? Why are Romans looking and acting so Greek, or taking so much an influence from them? So it's important that they did as many things different as they did similar, but the term Greco-Roman culture is the best thing to apply to it because it's so integrated into what the Romans would become. And you even see with Virgil in his legends that there was a Trojan warrior that fled the Greeks and moved to Italy, founding Rome. So another founding myth, and incorporating Greek literature into a Roman theme. Even the Greco-Roman gods, as most of us know, have many equivalents. So in Greece it was Zeus, Jupiter in Rome, Hera in Greece, Juno in Rome, Poseidon for Neptune, Hades for Pluto, Ares for Mars, and so on. Now, even though their gods looked very similar, and they, I use these equivalents, the Romans did revise some of these stories. The Greek gods were extremely scandalous, having affairs, and just their behavior was a lot more sensual, and scandalous is the right word, than was to Roman taste. And so there was a somewhat more conservative tilt on the way that Romans portrayed their gods. So they borrowed this pantheon from the Greeks, but with a little bit of a Roman twist. to it. Okay, so keep that in mind, and just remember, sometimes it's also where there's confusion, because in popular culture with movies and TV shows, sometimes they're using the Greek names of the gods and sometimes the Latin forms for the Roman. But just take love, eros. In Greek, Cupid, right? For Latin, we know the Cupid, but the English word erotic, right? Eros. Think about it. Okay, moving on. All right. Then we have Roman religion. So, pre-Greek influenced deities, some have called as alike as peas in a pod. They weren't as diverse. The priests of Roman religion, called Pontifex Maximus, this was the most important position in the ancient Roman religion, open to patricians until 254 BC, when a plebeian first occupied the post. Beginning with Augustus, it was subsumed into the imperial office until the 4th century CE. And think about the Pope, the Pontiff, right? You'll see, as we later talk about Christianity, how Roman religion gets fused with Christianity, and how Roman Catholicism can sometimes look very Roman, in fact. They had religious festivals, of course, as most religions did, and emperor worship was initiated by Julius Caesar. And to give you an idea of some of the language used in this idea of emperor worship. So if you look at Suetonius' writings here, covering 69 after 122 CE, he did the lives of Caesars, okay, and he talks about the deified Julius. So this was actually written, 110 CE, okay. So he writes, Caesar, died in the 56th year of his age and was numbered among the gods, not only by a formal decree, but also in the conviction of the common people. For at the first of the games which his heir Augustus gave in honor of his apotheosis, a comet shone for 7 successive days, rising about the 11th hour, about an hour before sunset, and was believed to be the soul of Caesar, who had been taken into heaven. And this is why a star is set upon the crown of his head in his statue. It was voted that the curia in which he was slain be walled up, that the Ides of March be called the day of parricide, and that a meeting of the Senate should never be called on that day. And then he says, hardly any of his assassins survived him for more than 3 years, or died a natural death. They were all condemned, and they perished in various ways, some by shipwreck, some in battle, some took their own lives with the self-same dagger with which they had impiously slain Caesar. What I think is interesting about this is that it's clear that much of what's being said here is just legend, myth, made up, not grounded in actual history. But if you look at this deification of Caesar, it's not much different than what North Korea has been doing with their leaders since the modern communist state that came after World War II. And in fact, some of the things that are kind of mocked in modern society about the stories that glorify, just for example, in North Korea, they teach that the founder of the state turned pine cones into grenades to attack the Japanese invaders, and could make leaves go across the river and turn into a bridge. In many ways, this deification of a leader comes out of perhaps ancient traditions. In that case, it didn't come out of Marxism. It came out of probably a Confucianist tradition. But emperor worship is still alive today, in a sense, then. And I just thought that was interesting. So, okay, so I'll move on to the next section. And actually, I'll stop here, and then we'll talk about Sybil and Addis.